Hello friends, my name is Rachel GNS Middle. Gilbert and Sullivan is my middle name and my middle name is my last name. And we are here today on behalf of Four Theatre to explore the magic of the Gilbert and Sullivan operas while very pedantically ranking every element of them. And what an element we have for you today.
Helium. You got to do all the patter songs on helium.
Do you want to know something interesting? And this is actually something that has only occurred to me at this very moment. Like, honestly, I did not plan to say this at all. I actually knew Tom Lehrer's Elements song before I'd seen any GNS.
That's not.
So I knew the antimony, arsenic, aluminum, selenium, and hydrogen and oxygen, nitrogen, and rhenium. I probably can't do the whole lot now, but like I could, because I was doing that at school when I was like 15, and I didn't even know about Gilbert and Sullivan back then. So that's actually something that just occurred to me. Like, wow, I was actually singing GNS before I even knew about GNS.
Do you know Tom Lehrer has another song that's on our list in a parody form? So the list we're about to do, he has one of these other 26 songs. There's a Tom Lehrer of it, yeah.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that one. So yeah, today we are discussing patter songs. That is the element that we're discussing today, as well as helium. And there are 26 songs on this list, aren't there?
You know, my first name is Helium. Try it out.
Helium Remorse.
That's pretty good. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, just don't get too full of yourself and float away.
I got one. A private balloon is a lighthearted loon. Ooh, That's good. All right, so 26 songs.
26 songs. So these are probably an element of GNS. Like, this is the element that people consider to be what GNS is, don't they? They're like, oh, all GNS sounds the same. It's just a lot of people talking quickly. But in fact, this is the first time we've already discussed patter songs.
Indeed, I think for a lot of people, if their first introduction to GNS, if it's a parody of GNS, which is not uncommon, it's going to be a patter song almost always. And for a lot of people, these are the highlights of the show, particularly for new audiences. These are really easy numbers to get involved in. They're particularly colorful characters that tend to deliver them. And they act as an emblem for a type of singing and textual approach that pervades the works, but here they are given full play to be as texty and vivid as possible.
And with that in mind, we've actually given lyrics 20 marks out of 20 this time. So music out of 20, lyrics out of 20, then dramatic impact out of 10, emotional comedic impact out of 10, enjoyment out of 10. And then do you want to explain the final out of 10 category for us?
Yes, I think considering what we just described, and also influenced by what you did with Emma in the alto arias video and having a cultural longevity part of the equation, there felt to me something that was sort of the special sauce, the je ne sais quoi, patter power, the potential of this song, like how stonking is the patter, I think is like one of the things, like is how much does it fill the role of a patter song, and how much of, again, longevity could be in terms of the text being accessible or at least clear, even if you don't know all the references, because a lot of these are lists, as well as the song just existing in time forever. So there might be some of these songs that are very patter power heavy, and I wanted to give them that attention, even if they might be songs that I actually would rank lower on the other categories. So think of it as the how emblematic, powerful as a patter song is it category.
Patter power. I like it because I wasn't sure if it should be tied into enjoyment, but then I actually found myself giving really different marks.
I think that's
for
fair.
Enjoyment and patter power. So I think it actually made sense.
And this is one
to have
like
that category.
like our baritone arias, and perhaps even slightly more so. I'm for enjoyment here. I'm experiencing it entirely from my perspective as a performer, first and foremost. As an audience member, I think all these things get linked in, and there's only, for my reckoning, I did a separate column for this. There are only 3 of these songs that I have never performed, and 2 of them you have performed, and I think it'll be no mystery which those are.
Wow, so there's just oh, and I know the one.
I bet you do. But then otherwise I have a category for which roles I played, and I would say I probably played, like, as far as songs distribution go, 65-70% of the actual parts. And some of these I've just done in my solo shows or cabarets or in concerts or whatnot. So a lot of these I feel like I'm like, oh, which of these do I look forward to singing? And even more so than the baritone arias, these tend to be the ones that I'll whip out at various functions. And with that in mind, I definitely have some that I'm like, oh, I'll sing that any day of the week, and some that I'm a little less excited to have to do. So that, I think, enjoyment became very important there.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear about your enjoyment, because I've only ever sung 2 of these songs, and I liked those ones, but I was also nervous about the words. I never quite got over the nerves with thinking, oh, am I going to mess up the words? And so, as somebody who does patter a lot, maybe you can, as we go, kind of give your insight about which of these songs kind of make you nervous and which ones you feel super comfy with.
Yep, some of them have traps, and some of them I've learned well, and some of them I learned so early on that I only discovered recently how wrong I've learned them. So I found a few of those not long ago. But that's why one should always look at the score again every time you do a new production.
Let's dive in.
So I'm going to speak to you now about these scores. I did some more columning, and you can, once you don't want to get spoilers, you can look at this yourself if you'd like.
Oh, yeah.
I've got green for any time you and I have actually given something the same rank. Not score, because you and I have a slightly different approach to score, but when it came to the rank. And as we've seen, my scores tend to be wider than yours. So, but rank-wise, we both have the same number 26, which means it is number 26, which means it is, oh, I'm the celestial drudge.
Yeah.
And given that this is your song that you sang in the first act of Thespis, you can maybe give us a little of your take on this.
Well, sadly, we don't have the music for this. And I feel that even though it works pretty well with the "My Boy, You May Take It From Me" melody, the endings of the phrases are a little bit, not jarring, that's the wrong word, but, oh, I'm a celestial drudge. From morning to night, I must stop at it. I think those extra syllables kind of don't sit too right with me. And I'm not really sure what melody that could have sat right with.
I tried it.
I was trying to think about it with other melodies, and I couldn't really think of a way of making that not sound kind of jarring. So I think certainly they did their best matching it with the best music they could from the canon. I do think it works. It's not a song, there's lots of really fun imagery in a song. Like, I didn't give it bad marks at all, but it's just, it's not particularly emotional. It's not particularly funny. I wouldn't say it's dramatic. I think Mercury's a really fun character, but the issue with Thespis is a lot of it, and very much this song included, just doesn't really have much weight. And I don't think the power of the patter and the construction of the lyrics was enough to save it, really.
I think that's 100% my feeling. And it's hard to think of a better tune in the canon than this one. I don't know what I wrote. I wrote something when I was like 18 for this, and it was very threadbare. But it did also do minor key and then major key like My Boy does. So there's something to that. Yeah. But that said,
it's weird how that the lines have different scansions. So like, I'm a celestial judge. It is odd.
And the refrain is, well, it's the way of the world, and will be through all its futurity.
For neighbors abandoned and there's nothing but clever obscurity. It's just
doesn't quite line up. But that said, what is one to do? I at least appreciate that it's quick and to the point, and we'll get into Thespis a little more in a minute. So, but in the meantime, I have another category for songs I've marked in our chart, red, for when our ranks were alarmingly different. So I've done myself a favor and marked those. So I've got this.
I'm so interested to like see where we dramatically differ, because I honestly thought like I was surprised by how much I was going with what I believed you would also go with. I thought you probably agree with me pretty much most of the time, especially with which ones came top. I was like, oh, these are the ones that will lose.
Honestly, as is typical, you and I think, and I'm not going to spoil it all, but we're the variations will happen in the middle and in the bottom. The more so than the top.
Yeah.
And there are things that you marked really high that I didn't from my own. There's one coming up that I'm like, oh no, you're right, but it's too funny that I'm going to leave it the way it is.
Okay.
But this one, I don't think you can make a huge case. You gave it 16th place, and I gave it 25th, and it did end up 25th. So my scores were intense. And this is the only non-Thespis song I haven't sung, which you knew what it was. Do you want to?
Oh no, actually, I don't. Oh, the only non-Thespis song you haven't sung.
Yes, I've never sung it, and I'm actually never gonna look forward to having to sing this, but I'm sure I will at some point.
I literally have no idea.
I've had it sung to me.
What? You've had it sung to you?
It's,
oh my god,
from the Grand Duke. Well, you're a pretty kind of fellow.
What is your issue with this song?
This song, I've had to get it sung to me 13 performances. And
that's the reason you don't like it?
That's the reason I don't like it. No, I don't know.
It's so annoying.
It's a big goof troop.
No, I gave this a high mark for music because honestly, it's fun music, and I give it a 14 for music. I think it's fun, and it's in the overture. The music's in the overture.
Well, that's a pretty good defense, and I'd argue that this is one of those pieces that comes into its own in the overture. The
rhyming's the rhyming's good. The lyrics are, they're not like amazing, but
Clattero, battero, shattero. It's got emotion in it.
It's got emotion in it. It's funny. It's like funny to see this guy coming in and he's angry. I think it's got like a relative dramatic value. So yeah, it was middle of the road for me, but certainly not bottom.
No.
That you had this one as bottom.
No, and isn't it shocking that this was cut in the original production very shortly into the run? That this and the roulette and come bumpers were all axed, so that second act crazy, was just garbage. But
that is crazy.
One of my issues with the song is that I've yet to hear a performer nail it without it being like yelling in 2/4 time. It's one of those ones that people like dig really hard into the anger of it, and then it becomes, instead of ba da da da, it comes da 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 da. And it's very one level. And maybe that's the thing. Maybe I have to try my hand at it and do it. We'll say, love the chorus harmonies. Strong.
Actually thinking about it, I do remember that when I directed Grandji with you, I do remember that by the time I got to directing this song, I'd really run out of steam. And I was having a big creative, like, mental block when it came to this one. And I really struggled to think of what to do with this one creatively. So I will give you that. I do remember that this one really didn't inspire me very much. But I do think, I thinking about it now, I think I know what I would do with it. But yeah, but I must admit I wasn't terribly inspired by this one during my
It's tough because we haven't seen this guy in a while. He comes in, he yells about a bunch of stuff. And the thing that's, for me as Ludwig, I always have to wait. Like, I have to let this whole dramatic beat happen. It's kind of like, but the ceremony has not taken place. Like, the thing I'm responding to is like ages ago, because I have to wait for the guy to do his funny nonsense. And then he finishes, and then I go like, but you can't say that. It's like, well, it takes forever. The best thing in our production was when the guys did a little hop at the end.
Yes.
That was
I loved that. I should have done more of that. More of that.
And one thing I loved, and Gary had us do this too, was not having an applause break for this one. Which this should feel like the big 11th hour climax. And for it being Sullivan's final patter song in the canon, only to be followed by a reprise of a chorus, which is really great to hear, but I want like a better last number for the canon than this. So maybe that's my issue.
Oh
But
yeah,
so
that's true.
but listen, I one person's egg is another person's ice cream. If we go on to the next one, we will now have number 24, which I have an orange category. And orange means we were only one rank apart.
Okay.
So not green, but nearly. And that's 24 and 25 for you and me respectively. I'm sorry, for me and you respectively. That's great. And it is in 24th place, Away Remorse Mach 2, Henceforth All the Crimes.
Yeah.
Now, because this number isn't done as much, I'll give a little news to the people who are listening. The aria for Robin that's in your scores almost always in a lot of them is this one, if any, and if it's the Oxford, you have the other one in the appendix. This aria comes just before Margaret and Despard show up in Act 2 of Ruddigore. Mm-hmm. Both arias have the exact same recitative, but are followed by a different 6/8 patter song. And we have ranked both of those numbers as two separate numbers, though they have an identical first minute. And
yeah,
I think
for me, I even though I don't imagine either one will end up super high for me, I don't imagine the other one will end up too much higher than this. I really do prefer the other one dramatically, not that much more, but like I do very much prefer it. I mean, score wise, I don't think it did too much more, but this one, like I have no idea what on earth Gilbert and Sullivan were thinking with the actual song part of this. I love the recit, but the song part of this is just a complete diversion from all the dramatic tension that's built up. Because I will go into why I think the other one is a little bit better when we get to that one, but this is just it's so wet. It's such a pathetic attempt to be funny. Like it's not funny, but it's obviously meant to be kind of quite cutting, but it totally fails in my opinion. Like, and I love the recit. That's why I didn't give it like proper bottom, because the recit I think is really good, but the actual song part of this, musically as well as lyrically and just dramatically, emotionally, I just find it
is tough. And this is something
not in keeping with the tone at all.
They wrote the other one first, and then not being satisfied with it, they cut it very early, perhaps even before opening night. And this one this was the improvement, which was cut later anyway. When I played Robin in New York with Gary Slavin, I campaigned the second I was cast and said, please let us do it for 35 years. A lot of times Robin gets no song, which I do find not a word but obey, fly. He leaves, da 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 da, to be kind of wet in itself. Yeah. So the song helps, and I still feel like neither one is 1000% what this moment needs, but the recit is incredible. The recit is...
Do you know what would have been, I mean, obviously you couldn't use the same lyrics, but do you know what manner of song would be appropriate here that is terrible in its current location?
What's that?
Fold Your Flapping Wings. That is the moment for a song like that. And Fold Your Flapping Wings, the only reason it didn't get like top bass aria for me was because it's so inappropriately placed. And like in the emotional narrative of IOLANTHE. I always include it because I love the song, but I don't like the way it fits in the story. But something like that kind of tone here, like after what he's just gone through, that would be so much better than this. Because the thing is, it would be fun. Honestly, I think this song would be fine if it was actually really funny and it was able to kind of make us relax after that big emotional moment. But it's the fact that it's kind of trying to like make us relax, but it just does so in such a pathetic way that just demeans everything we've just been through.
It does indeed. And his targets, Robin isn't interested in attacking well-to-do squires. He's not interested in attacking shady politicians. He's not interested in those things. He's a simple farmer. And
like, this is not the lampooning that GNS think it is.
so so this is very strange because the other song, as we'll discuss, is about Robin. It's about himself, so it actually makes
I know
sense.
that's why it's so much better. But yeah,
I'm obsessed with the discourse on this tune, so I'm going to come back to it more when we talk about the other one.
Okay. But I love the recit. I mean, what do you think about the recit?
It is the best, and having gotten to do it, I got to do it in my solo show as well. I'll talk more about the hybrid version there, but that transition, not a word, but obey, fly into that bum bum. Yeah. Bum, 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 bum. And then as long as you don't sing it wet, there's the potential for wetness of dum, bum, bum, away, remorse, bum, and you suddenly lose all of that momentum. The crazed feeling that Robin should be in, to the point where he's like, I've just seen a bunch of ghosts and now I have to carry off a lady. He's now the emblem of reckless abandon. And the recit does that. And then this particular aria, can I just point out, it goes, oh, I have celestial drudge in my head. What is the refrain of this? It goes, oh, a baronet's rank is exceedingly nice, but the title's uncommonly dear at the price. That's the refrain. And it feels like, you know how you were talking about the scansion and celestial drudge in the version we did? This feels like it's like that, but GNS actually wrote it. It's like, oh, it feels like it needs two more phrases or something. Like it's, anyway, I'm gonna, yeah,
it sounds like it sounds abrupt, doesn't it?
It's abrupt, and it's because
the refrain is,
I think Sullivan went, all right, fine, I'm gonna just in 23rd place, and we're pretty close on this, 22 me, 24 you, split the difference. It's When I Went to the Bar, which is weird because I think we both love the Lord Chancellor and we think he's a good guy.
I love the Lord Chancellor, but I do find this song, and the thing is that there always has to be a song that fills this function, which is like, something dramatic has just happened, something even more dramatic is about to happen. Here's like a little palate cleanser, a little light, easy listening song. So you know what? In the context of IOLANTHE, I think it's lovely. And I think it's a really gentle, sweet song that really fits the place it's in, but it doesn't hold much weight for me. It's not terribly dramatic or impressive. It's just a very sweet, fun song that I'm always happy to hear. I'm never bored of it. And I love it when it's sung rhythmically correctly.
I love when the rhythms are correct on this one. It is in 6/8. Yeah. And we know that adds to it because it makes it even more carefree. Sullivan does not usually want to put two different meters at the same time. Another good example is Sorry Her Lot, where Josephine has a different meter than the orchestra does. But here's a good example of it, and that polyrhythmic energy. When I went to the bar as a very young man, said I to myself. It's got this really cool feel to it.
Yeah.
But I think this is another one where, like, we've talked about this a lot, where some songs have like one joke a verse because they have to take all this time to go, and the rich guys don't do anything. And it's like, we understand. And
what is the verse that ends with, and I fancy that rule might apply to the bar?
The final one.
What's the verse?
In other professions in which men engage, the army, the navy, the church, and the stage, professional license of carry to fore, your chance of promotion will certainly mar, and I fancy that rule might apply to the bar. Said out of myself.
Yeah, I love the way that I love that text. I think I gave this a pretty high mark lyrically, you know. I think I gave this a 15 out of 20 for lyrics. I think it's really sweet, and I think the music is also quite sweet. I do really like this one. It's just, you know, it's not like a proper Pat of Power song. I think
I'm hip to it, and we have this character has two much better songs elsewhere in the show, it's really hard to fight. Let's talk about Thespis again, because now in 22nd place, we're pretty much in agreement on this one, more or less. It is Olympus is now in a terrible muddle.
Oh, you see, I like this one much better than the other one, performing it. I mean, especially because I got to perform it to you, and that was nice. I think this one works super well with the music that Baker Henty, that the Baker Henty version used. And that's a great piece of music, as we will discuss no doubt later on. And the thing is, I will say that the lyrics aren't as easy to say, and should fill the something young chap with disgrace. It's something like that. Do you know the bit I mean?
Mm-hmm. No.
But I found oh god, I'm losing my headphone. I found that really, really hard to say, that little bit. Should cover the wicked young lad with disgrace. Should cover the wicked young lad with disgrace. With disgrace, it's a hard thing to sing and patter. Whereas, like, when I try and sing Modern Major General, Nightmare Song, like when I sing those songs, I can just get the words out. But this one, I actually found, because I even though I won, actually, you might not know this, but I won Best Female Performer for my portrayal of Mercury in this 2014 production of Thespis at the International Gilbert and Sullivan Festival. So you might not have known that, but you know that now.
You might not know this, but did you know that in that same festival, and by coincidence in that same year, and by an even wilder coincidence in that same show, I won the award for Best Male Presenting Performer as Sullivan. And what's wild is that we were both in this same song.
Get out.
So this song means something to us. I'm not gonna get out.
I
my frame is in the other room, so you'll have to imagine
but like it is. But I did actually get a note from the adjudicator that the words couldn't always be heard, and I'm not saying I'm perfect. Perhaps I could totally have done some work on my diction. Perhaps I could have worked a bit harder on that. But I did find this really difficult. I don't think it is as. The lyrics are not constructed in a way that makes this as easy to sing as I think a lot of the other songs on this list. But it's funny. It's got some jokes in it. I like the remarkable instance of longevity. That's great. And there are some laughy moments. There are some laughy moments in this song, and I had a really good time singing it. But I think you can definitely see that they got better at doing this kind of thing as they go, because this is not a good example of a song that really trips off the tongue.
Probably not. But in addition to that, if we knew the original setting, perhaps Sullivan helped.
Maybe, yeah.
Your performance of it was wonderful, and I enjoyed how it felt like a duet when we did it, even though I only shouted one ad lib. But I put a picture of us next to each other as a good one, where you're going like this.
That was the first time we like kind of properly performed together. Mm-hmm. And like knew each other, because we've been in the Sorcerer before, but you were in the chorus and I was Constance, so we didn't really have any interaction. But in this show, we actually got to have interaction together, and that was where like the kind of embryo of Forbear Theatre
was happening right then. You told me about it right during that show, so this is a special one for us. And in addition to that, it does serve a plot function. And
it's great. So, I mean, I didn't really give marks for narrative in this one, because I figured it's not really about narrative. Really, these songs are very few actually progress the narrative, so I didn't really see the point in including that category. But yeah, we're learning stuff in this song. It's pretty good.
To speak of a song we don't learn anything in, and a song we both ranked also pretty near this rank of 21, is As Someday It May Happen, which I'm proud to say. My individual scores for this are represented as follows. As Someday It May Happen, music 11, great. Lyrics 1. I give a 1 for lyrics. First of all, it has the automatic disqualifier of being canceled, because it was. And second of all,
what do you mean it was cancelled?
There's like a a bad slur in the text.
Oh God, of course. Yeah.
And which is very clumsily patched over in the traditional patch. That everyone does the traditional patch if they keep that line, but very few people in modern day keep any of these lyrics anyway. So by that token, I also feel like, well, it also gets a 1 because then there's no lyric attached to this song that I am attached to in any way. So
so as a side point, like when like commonly, and I actually deleted all the comments under the MIKADO video that were questioning why I was changing the names, because I just got so sick of repeating the same things over and over. But so many times I'll hear people saying to me, but it wasn't Gilbert's intention to hurt anybody. It was, but in this instance of him using that terrible word, Gilbert was not actually using that word to refer to the people that it commonly referred to. He was using it to refer to people who badly impersonate people of that race.
Yes,
So the thing is, you could argue then Gilbert's intentions were not bad. He was not actually kind of lampooning
you could even argue
race of people. However, just because Gilbert's intentions were bad, we still changed the word, didn't we?
Yeah,
you know, so you can't just say just because somebody's intentions are good, we shouldn't change it. But what I'm saying is that dispels that.
I'm also willing to say the following with some amount of conviction, which is that I don't think he's also saying like, oh yes, that kind of minstrel act is problematic and should be banned. I think he's like, oh, that's an annoying type of music, and the performer, he's talking about it almost like on an artistic level. He's like, that's cheap vaudeville, and it's like
it's like tacky.
You're missing. He's missing the point. So this is the Little List song, and again, people usually put their whole new words to it anyway, which is usually bad. If my one rule with the Little List is you can't just name people, and a lot of times people rewrite the list, and it's like if it gets to the point that it actually names a human being who exists, you've failed the test. The test is to allude to things and to be clever about it. And I got to rewrite and write a list not long ago, and I love getting to find ways to incorporate Gilbert's very interesting rhyme structure, which does force you to find new ways to rhyme ist with other things. And I did fit numismatist in there, so that's not so bad. So you can do clever things, and I think a lot of times it'll be like, and the guy who made the iPad and the guy who walked the dog, you gotta go to jail, you gotta go on the list. And it's like, you didn't follow any of the structure of it, you dunce. So anyway, if we could do our top 10 worst.
You should do that. Lists. You should do that version of that song. You should go to jail. That'd be great. It's really good. I forgot what I was going to say now because that was so funny. It distracted me.
You talked the other day too on one of your other videos about this song being in its original place later in the show.
Yeah. Oh my God, it makes it so much better. In my opinion, because then it adds stakes onto it. Because can you imagine like a patter guy like trying to sing this song while the other two were just like watching him, like closing in, kind of like metaphorically and physically on him. He's like, there's this person. And that's why I think it's actually, it might be really funny to do a version, which I hear actually, I think Sasha Reagan's company did this recently. They actually, when they rewrote this, they didn't talk about kind of really high up people. They just talked about little petty things that annoy you. And I actually thought that was a really cute idea. Yeah, I didn't see it myself.
There's some in there. I mean, listen, we
so he's like scrambling to find things. So like, there's this, like the person that like burps in public. I don't know.
We hate him.
You know.
I will say there's something clever about the fact that the third verse has all of the fill in the blank names.
I like the fill in the blank.
And the fact that sometimes got a reaction in the old days when somebody of the elite was in one of the boxes. The patter guy would say that fill in the blank section.
Yeah.
and would eye somebody in the boxes who might be slightly well known, who was known to be in the theater. That could get a huge reaction. So I think that this song is good, but it's wild to me that like on like a Patter Songs compilation it appears at all, because that happens from time to time. So
I think what I don't like about it is I don't like the music. I find it very dull musically, and I also don't like how it stops the whole show in its tracks.
I'll just cut it.
And those are the things I don't particularly like
It's
about
also,
it. But if you put it in its original place, I think it's a bit more interesting.
It's also got that line about dresses like a guy, which is some dumb Guy Fawkes thing. And don't tell me that I don't understand it, because I do. But the point is, people in the modern day
what you have to understand, Will, is that in the early 17th century, these people tried to blow up Parliament, and one of them was called Guy Fawkes.
I do not.
Every year we celebrate
I know.
this.
Yeah, whatever. But then there's a bit about the lady novelist, and both of those things read really gross today. I mean, very few people perform the actual list. I could tell you one good story. When I was doing this in the youth production in 2011, where I was the ringer patter guy. This was directed by John Savorin and conducted by Andrew Nicklin. So hot talent with these little ones in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. And I remember that I had this fastidious need to like pronounce everything correctly. And I was like, well, it wouldn't be nice I Prius. It'd be like nisi prius, right? That nisi prius nuisance who just now is rather rife, the judicial. So I remember just going, that nisi prius nuisance. And I just remember John and Andrew were like, nisi prius. And they didn't say anything, but they definitely were like, because we all know that the British, if you're listening, particularly the English, I'm not gonna rope in the other countries into this. If a word is in a foreign language, you tend to pronounce it in English. Like fate instead of fete is a great example in Gilbert and Sullivan, which is a rhyme, but not a forced rhyme. That is actually, oh yeah, we went to the local fete. People just say it. But how did that happen? Another good example is lieutenant, which I don't even understand. But that's your, like, you can't go lieutenant. You can't do it. You refuse to say anything in its right language.
It's another one. Pasta.
It's outrageous. And it's all over Gilbert and Sullivan, particularly things like the Latin words that show up from time to time. That said, nice job on hoi polloi. Pretty good.
You know what I realized? Because doing the Glock Grand Duke recently, it should actually be diegeticon, not diegeticon.
Take that.
Apparently, diegeticon.
Listen,
which I've been saying that wrong for years, but we were very much informed by several classicists in the cast that it was that.
There are a lot of bamboozlements in Gilbert and Sullivan. I remember that I got Ditharam from Ken Sanford, and then David Jones said, you got bamboozled by the 1976 recording. It's Ditharam. And I'm like, of course it is. That's the order of the letters. So thank you, David Jones. But now for a song that has no words you can mispronounce. In 20th place, with a staggering, I'm 21 and you're 12, is My Boy You May Take It From Me.
Oh, okay. Like that's not one that I'm like really married to. Like,
no,
I think it's fun. I love the lyrics. I love the way it feels. I think there's a lot of potential for comedy. I love it. I love how deluded Robin is and how narcissistic he is, but in this very wholesome way. But what's the, because the line that precedes it is, you have no idea what a poor opinion I have of myself and how little I deserve it.
Exactly right.
And I just find that whole concept absolutely hilarious. I'm diffident and modest and shy. I love it. I'm obsessed with this one. I love it.
Having played Robin, this is one that I did in my solo show the first time and then cut it the second time because I think it stands less well out of context, which is weird because it also shows up in patter compilations. Martin Green did it on television once, and it doesn't quite do for me what it needs to do out of context. In context and with very good direction for it as a duet, it's the kind of number that like does need the other person to really bring it to life. Does need the Dick Dauntless. Because this is, out of all the ones in this entire list, is this the only one that's a duet? Like on paper, they do sing together at the end, as it's not a chorus join in. But I think it's one of those ones where like the verses are all the same. I definitely struggle when the tempo is bum 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 da 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 da.
My boy, you may take it from me.
Rough. I love it, and I'm happy to play the role of Robin sometime in the future and do it in context again. But it does suffer a bit. I mean, I did my usual ranking where I tried to space out the numbers. So this one was just, for me, just to quote the classic phrase used in every ranking video, it's a good number, but I didn't think it was as good as the other ones. It's just the way it is. We love this stuff.
Because I remember that I said that like 10 times in my duets video, just like the first one I did. And then you gave me some feedback saying, Rachel, you don't have to say that about every single number. So I've really tried to stop myself saying it, but I still end up saying it like at least 4 or 5 times per video. It's so hard because I just want to keep assuring people that I really do love all of these.
I
maybe
get you.
Apart from, which is the one that I really didn't like. Oh yeah, Henceforth of the Crimes. I didn't like that, but I like the rest of it.
Yeah, we like the rest of it, and and let's keep going. 19, and we ranked at 18 and 21, pretty close ranking. This is Whene'er I Spoke Sarcastic Joke, and it's the third act King Gama song, which I think has cute orchestration. It's got like a nice
I like the music in it. I think I gave it a relatively good music note.
One thing I really like about this one, and why I've enjoyed performing it, though I did cut it in my last show just for time, is not Princess Sada in my solo show. My solo show was like 44 songs, and then I cut it to 37 the second time, or something like that. And it was originally like every single patter song I could think of, and more. And then I was like, I have nothing to prove. I don't need to do every single one. And this one I do appreciate, though, because in spite of Whene'er, it does have a very modern, contemporary leaning to it. Like this is a really easy one to understand as a modern audience member. Like the things he's talking about, when German bands for music stands played Wagner imperfectly, I bade them go, they didn't say no, but off they went directly. Like, it's really quite a cute and simple lyric about, again, grievances that you have. And the fact that the story being told is about you being like angry at people who then look at you and are having a nice time.
It's a very British thing to be annoyed about, and so I think that it's nice that as an American you find it funny, because to me this does seem like a very British thing, that we love complaining. we love to moan about stuff, and so actually depriving us of that right is actually genuinely distressing.
Would you hate it if a group of mild people all got together and voted that you were delightful? I love the fact that there is a vote being cast by this mild group, and they're like, you're just delightful.
Yeah. Oh, that would suck.
I think it's a good song, and it's one that I also feel like is a showstopper if you really lean into it. And if you make it like
I remember that when we did it at St Andrews, this is the first GNS show I was ever in, all the ladies chorus were like standing kind of like vertically down the wings, and then when we did the little chorus sponsors, we'd kind of like lean in and then lean out again, and that was
that's
cute.
good. I cheated, and I had them miming a hat and cane, but I really should have just gotten them hats and canes, because that would have, like, to turn this into like, it really has like has a whole this in it. Oh my gosh, what a tune that is.
It's a bop.
And also one of my favorite weird playouts. It has like it has just that alternation of the two chords in a way that feels diabolically abrupt, and I
don't like the fact that he gives away the punchline in the dialogue before the song.
Oh, cut that, right? Oh yeah,
I think I said that in my dialogue video already, but
it's in the wrong place. Yeah, you mentioned that like he says it in you were right about that. But
God.
they were during Princess Ida, they were famously smoking some heavy doobies. So if we go on to 18th place, this one is Rising Early in the Morning, which we both have around the same rank. In fact,
Ah.
here's one of these weird things that happened with this. It's 17th for me and 14th for you, but because of the way the numbers work, it is 18th overall. So it doesn't always work out that the ranks don't
interesting.
average, the numbers do. So it's actually ranked lower than either of us ranked it, which is worth noting. And having played Giuseppe, and done, this is another one of the songs I cut from my concert, which I thought proved to me which ones I enjoy less. I find this one is a little bit of a pain to sing because it is like still a lyric baritone song. And though there's no technical line that he's supposed to sing at the end, traditionally has like a big high note at the end that would normally, it's marked for just the chorus tenors, but he sings them, so usually sings it too. And I usually feel like this one is still while the audience is waking up after the interval. You talked about Happiness the Very Pith the other day, and I agree with you about everything you said about that number. And I feel like this number still feels like that. We need Risk of Our Lives for this act to really thrust into energy.
I find this Act 2 opening section of Gondoliers relatively forgettable, unless you get a really stonking good tenor doing
absolutely. And the thing that you did with your direction for this number was involve the chorus in a lot of show and tell to kind of help the song along.
Exactly. I think I thought it has a lot of movement, a lot of stuff going on, just kind of really emphasize the chaos of court and how hard they're working. And so I didn't, because I didn't really, I give this a 16 for both music and lyrics. I actually think the material's pretty decent. I just don't really find it that iconic. I don't really find it, I found it enjoyable when I directed it, but it's not a song that I particularly find enjoyable when I've seen it in the past.
No,
I just don't really find it emotional or dramatic or that funny, really. It's just a bit, but you know, it's got decent lyrics.
I'm hip to it.
Music.
I directed this 10 years ago when I was a baby, so I didn't know anything, but it was one of those ones where I was like, all right, chorus, just sit around bored and I will walk around and sing a song.
Ooh, negative energy
Didn't work. And that's often the way this number's done. I feel like it's the chorus is checked out on purpose while he does his little thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know. The only thing I'll tell you and I'll tell everybody is don't put pauses in it.
Oh my god, it's so much better without pauses.
Yeah, you just keep it rolling.
Isn't that just like the case like 98% of the time?
I took the pauses out of Modern Major General, including the ones that are in the score. I just said no more. It's Sullivan and Gilbert.
More.
I want to go home.
Sullivan and Gilbert. Who are they?
Who are they? So speaking of Sullivan and Gilbert being two guys, this next number is by them also. And in 17,
two guys.
No, it's by them.
Oh, okay. Oh, really? Interesting.
But it is about one guy who was once a lad, and this is 17th place when I was a lad. And again, 17th, though we ranked it very close, 15, 16. I grew to like this one more when I did it in my solo show because it wasn't one I had ever performed before. I've never done this role, so I probably will soon. And I think this number is funnier throughout than I gave it credit for. I used to think it was 4 boring verses, and then the 5th and 6th verse have 1 joke each, which is further underlined by the pausing. So it's a little like, I always found like the story was a little wet, but I found in performing it, I found ways to add my own color and sparkle that I enjoyed to the earlier verses that made it really about, like, you actually learned something about the guy more than this role suffers for me a lot because it is probably, out of all GNS roles, maybe King Gama also is one, but that's less of a high profile show. This is very commonly a stunt cast famous person in bigger productions. And I think that is the reason why this song usually suffers for me. And if it's not a stunt cast famous person, it is the patter guy at the local company who hasn't thought about the material in a very long time. And it can be very much the same delivery, or even like it's like the character breaks the fourth wall to be like, I'm the funny actor waving a funny handkerchief. And there's actually a funnier song here than that gives it credit for. Particularly because of the fact that what's interesting about Sir Joseph is that he actually earned his position through dogged determination and abuse of the system.
Absolutely. Yeah, and this is why, like, because I remember like discussing this with Simon when I directed it in 2021, that we were kind of going back and forth about how like it is this guy is kind of both trying to encourage all the same. So like, you can do it too. Like, it's possible, guys. I did this, you know. I'll polish up that handle so carefully that now I am the ruler of the Queen's Navy. It's like, it's that's how crazy this is. Like, can you believe this, guys? It's almost like he can't himself quite believe that it's happened.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so it should be kind of performed with this like manic, like, I actually did it, the energy, and then it's kind of quite sweet in a way. I think Sir Joseph could actually be like a very sweet, encouraging character, and like I think, you know, he knows really that, I mean, very few of any of them are going to achieve even a fraction of the success he's done, but it's still meant well. You know,
Yes.
it's not just him showing off, like it's actually meant well. I have to go and tie a scarf around the door handle. I'll explain why in a moment.
Okay.
I just like 1 minute.
Okay.
Oh, this is a new cat, by the way.
Oh, hang on. Hello. Wow, I love that
It's a
cat.
serpent. So I'm just going to explain to the viewers what I was doing just then. So we have a new cat in our house, and our cat can open our front door. So we have to tie a scarf around the door handles, and we're getting a locksmith in tomorrow to like help us double lock the door. But yeah, at the moment, whenever anyone needs to go in and out of the house, we have to tie a scarf around the door. Otherwise, the cat will literally just reach up and open the door.
Number 16, and I love that this beats Sir Joseph, just for my own sadistic pleasure. It is Away Remorse Mach 1 for 35 years.
I'd literally forgotten that we hadn't even done
So
the second one.
just for what it's worth, I have this at 15,
Yeah.
and you have it as at 20. And I think getting to do this in a full production in a 600-seat theater with fog machine and amazing ghosts, and getting to sing this song, oh my gosh, it was such a gift that will always prejudice me towards it. As we mentioned before, it is the more emotionally involved one. This is a song where Robin, who's 35, basically says, I've been a good guy. And then if you were a bad guy, if you say you're going to reform, then everybody thinks like you've really reformed. This is a very Shakespearean thing. It's got shades of Prince Hal. It's got shades of Hamlet, where it's like, I'm going to really like improve in a way that everyone, like, the difference between being the bad guy and as long as you say like, well, I've reformed, and then everyone is more impressed by you than if you were good to begin with. So it's a little bit about like, he's like, this situation I'm in is a little nuts. In this recent solo act, I decided just to do both. And then at the end of the first one, launched right into the second one, because they're both in the same key and the same time signature, as if like explaining his situation made him more indignant at the world. I don't know if I would do that in a production. Maybe if I was feeling very completionist about it, I would. But it allowed the opportunity for me just to try something. And I don't think I would ever want to perform Henceforth on its own. So it felt like if I did it as like recit aria cabaletta in a kind of funny way.
I will say, I think I actually prefer the music of the other one, like 1 point more. But in every other respect, I much prefer this one, because to me, it's like what you were saying. It feels more introspective and childlike, and it's like he has had his narcissism kind of stripped away a little bit, and he's actually starting to really look into himself and examine himself. And I think that, and it's childlike and kind of helpless in a way, and it's I think he's a lot more likable, I think, as a result of this song. The other one is just like trying to take like a cheap shot at like a very kind of wet and ineffectual cheap shot at, you know, peers and I can't even remember, squires and
Yeah, this is much better.
But this just seems a lot more real and is about him. It's more introspective. It's a lot sweeter.
I'm hip to that. I think that it's got some wonderful lines in it about all that. Like it paints a picture of who he was before all this happened.
Yeah,
and it has that meta line, and things that will someday be known as galoshes.
I love that.
Which is up there with like Japanese equivalent of here, 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 as like one of these lines that doesn't make any sense in any realistic way, but is almost breaking the fourth wall to say like, eventually the thing I'm wearing will be this. So
yeah,
I
don't mind it, because the thing is, it just draws attention to how funny it is when these silly characters say these lines really earnestly, because that is the thing that people would never say. Because the thing is, most of Pirates of Penzance are lines that people would never ever say, but the characters say them with utter conviction, and that is what makes them funny.
Absolutely. Are you ready for the big one? The biggest.
What is the big one?
The biggest.
Is this the biggest upset?
Do you know what it is? It's the biggest upset.
Do you know what?
No.
In whose direction?
I think your direction. It's always you.
I'm always the one that's upset.
It's oh my gosh! It's
like,
every single time. It's like I've completely destroyed something that you love. And here's the problem: I love this song. I do not understand. I think that like I was like trying to approach the song very objectively, and somehow it got 20th place. It's 15th overall. I gave it 20. Yeah. You gave it 5th place. And it is in Enterprise of Martial Kind.
Okay, yeah, I know that not everyone is going to like this as much as I do. The thing is, for me, there's a cat fight going on in front of me. Oh well, Daenerys, it's okay. The thing about this song is that it just ineffably kind of rouses something in me. I love how militaristic it is, and even though it has like no emotional resonance for me, it just kind of makes me feel things. It's just super exciting to me. And I find it, I absolutely adore it, and I think the Duke is so sweet and funny, and he's just got this like really cute energy in it, and it's very self-deprecating, but it's also kind of unaware as well. But then everyone else is kind of so supportive around him. I just think it's quite sweet.
I love this song.
Yeah.
This is one of, I've only gotten to play this role once, but I've gotten to direct it twice, and I've so fond of this song, which is why it boggled my mind. I mean, I do think your 5th place is wildly high for a song that I think
I'm surprised it got that high. I had no idea that was my 5th place one.
The numbers say the numbers. I think that maybe part of my...
Oh my God, yeah, you're right. It was my 5th place. Wow, God.
Part of my demerit might have been that the... that the chorus of the other 3 folks takes a huge percentage of the power. I also think it lost some points because, as you might remember, though you have the whole verse to think about it, the chorus refrain is hard to remember.
Oh, yeah, okay.
It takes a bit of energy, and when you're playing the Duke and you get up to, first of all, you're going, is it celebrated, cultivated, or is it ever knowing, very knowing, evil, like which of those is it going to be? And then is it going to be an every daddy deed, or is it going to be?
Actually, I do find myself getting confused about the pronouns.
It's tough.
I never know if it's he or you.
It could be.
So yeah, I get confused about that.
It could be.
So that was always a cause of like slight concern.
And I think it does have a slightness to it. But I was shocked I ranked it so low. I think it's a great tune, and that we have more.
I get what you mean. No, it's not really a solo number, but I think we decided that we couldn't include this in quartets for some reason.
Because it's a solo number. But it's not really one. It's it's the Duke with 3 people.
So it doesn't really fit into either, and as a result of that, it suffered. But because it means either way it would have been judged on wonky parameters, because it just doesn't really fit into either category. So that's kind of why. But I love it. I absolutely love this one.
Tremendous. Let's move on to 14th place.
Let's move on.
Which is another upset, but I think you're going to see why I ranked it high. And you gave it 23rd, and I gave it 12th.
Huh?
That is I Once Knew a Chap Who Discharged a Function.
Oh, I love this song.
And I think
it did, like, everything from Thespis just suffers for me because we don't really know what the music is. But actually, the Baker Hunter used Sullivan's Zoom music, didn't it? It did, so and I think it works really well. It's really fun. Where it suffers for me is that I can never follow the narrative of it. I have a great difficulty following the narrative and don't really quite understand what the song's about. Despite having literally sat down and looked and studied the lyrics, I still don't really get the story. Like, yeah, okay, a station master was too nice to his employees, and
then they thought he was making fun of them because they...
I didn't get that. I literally didn't... What? I didn't get that he...
Second verse, in course of time, there spread a rumor that he did all this from a sense of humor. So instead of signaling and stoking, they gave themselves up to a course of joking. Whenever they knew that he was...
that went way over my head.
In course of time, there spread a rumor that he did all this from a sense of humor. So instead of signaling and stoking, they gave themselves up to a course of joking. Whenever they knew that he was right, they shot his train on a lonely side. Stopped the night, and the tone of the creel of the water was a comfort flow. If he wished to go to Plymouth or string his string through several counties, we sent him down in a fit unlucky at 4 a.m. in the wilds of Bucky. Squeezed his whip, it seemed just like it, but the general public did not like it. Since their laughter a few repeats, and he got it hot at the annual meetings. A chairman, a director's function, and all salaries was still 6 judges. Throttled him with great compassion, and all had to start with a chairman, a director's function, and all salaries was still 6 judges.
What is the moral of the song? It's remember the guy, he says to Sullivan or whoever he says it to in the real libretto, is remember the guy who was hanging out with his subordinates. Like,
that's actually a super funny line. There's a really funny line. Did you not remember the guy who did? You know, I can't remember what the line is.
That line, it is good. I love lines.
I gotta find the line, but carry on talking.
I loved singing this, and not long ago I did it, and even interpolated some heavy rock belting into the refrain. So big fan. I think, particularly because it was Thespis, I was like, I can do whatever I want with the vocal line and make it like a little more syncopated, a little more musical theater at times.
I've got the line. It's, don't you know the story of the gentleman who undermined his influence by associating with his inferiors? It's just such a wordy line. Because it's like, don't you know the fable of the magnet and the churn? Don't you know the story of the gentleman who undermined his influence by associating with his inferiors? It's just such a stupid sentence. It's so long and
that's
involved.
That's what the song's about. So
I know. I just think it's something that nobody would ever say, and I love that.
I like it very much too. So big fan. Let's proceed. I think we agree this is a hit. Yay. We have a green here. This is a triple green. 13th place. 13th place, 13th place.
Ooh.
And this number couldn't be more exactly the middle of this bell curve because of all of the reasons. And it is, I am the very model of a modern major general. Has hit dead center on this list.
Where did it come for me? Oh, 13th, you just said.
13,
yeah.
Everything. And so here are my rankings. I think here's a good song where individual rankings might be useful. I see them now. I have 11 for music, 10 for lyrics, 19 for dramatic impact, 8 for emotional comedic impact, 10 for the patter power, and 7 for the enjoyment.
Were you marking dramatic impact out of 20?
Was I?
I only marked it out of 10.
You know what? But of course I did. Well,
as long as you were consistent, it's fine.
So all my scores way more, I guess.
So like you just got 10 more marks than I did, basically.
But I've gotten to play a lot of these guys.
That's fine. So that's fine. That's cool. As long as you were consistent, it doesn't matter. But yeah, because I did 11 for music, I did 14 for lyrics, 7 out of 10 for dramatic impact, 7 out of 10 for emotional comedic, but then 10 out of 10 for like patter power.
That's it. This is the one.
Yeah.
Well, for a lot of people, this is the patter song. And why I rank it low is because it makes me incredibly anxious to have to perform it, which is one reason I took the pauses out. So I don't, when your brain stops to think, it becomes harder. It's a list, and not in a fun way. It's not surprising to me that John Reid gave this roll up in 1968. And I think this song is one of the reasons. This song is almost less fun for the performer than it is for the audience. And I don't think that the tune and its blunk, 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 blunk chord setting is as inspired as maybe some of the other accompaniments that are a little more vivid, but it is completely, completely right for what is happening. And as far as lyrics go, it's hard for me to rank a list like this so high. Though that said, I gave another list 18, but the other list is
the other list is superior in every way but the lyrics. I love the other song you're talking about. That's the list, but this is just I find musically I find it quite uninspired. But as you say, I don't think it could have been really any better for what it was. I think ultimately it actually suffers from what the one before it did, which is just the fact that I don't really get what the point of it is. Because do you remember, I mean, I don't know, in fact you weren't there, because we were all discussing when I directed this back in 2020. That was like the first Full Bear show. You weren't there for that one, because it was the COVID year. But we were saying, actually, what is this song about? And the first two verses are, I've got all these things. And then the second verse is, I've got these things. And then the third verse is, when I know this thing, and when I know that, I will be. So that the third verse is actually different. And we're like, why is that? And it is interesting that like the third verse has a slightly different character to the other two. And the music and the tempo is meant to change as well. So I think there are colours to this song, but I still don't really get what it's saying or what the overall message of it is. What are we meant to feel about him from this song? Or are we just praising the performer rather than the character? Yes. It seems to me a song for a performer rather than a song for a character, because what does it tell us about him? Nothing. Well,
which is, oh God, I've struggled so hard to get a laugh out of it, because I feel like it sets you up for a very funny punchline, which is this incredible list of nonsense that has nothing to do with him. And then, well, now that I have introduced myself, is to me so funny.
Oh yeah,
it never hits.
But he hasn't introduced himself. He said nothing about himself.
That's the joke.
Yeah, I guess.
I guess then that's why I shouldn't try too hard on that one. The point of the story is, it is the one, and I get why we've marked it kind of in the middle.
Oh, yeah. And like, so, okay, this is a song that I don't think I've ever in my life thought, I'm going to listen to this song for pleasure. In fact, I think even when I've directed this song, even when I directed Pirates of Penzance, I've never once put this song on my headphones and listened to it.
I'll tell you.
Because I just know what I'm going to do with it. I don't really have any thoughts about this song. Do you know what I mean?
Well, here's the most important thought. Most important thought. Don't stop for business. Don't stop for business. Don't have him talk to one of the daughters. Don't have him say lie to G bad. Don't do any of it. Don't do anything. In fact, just cut the thing.
In fact, when I know what is meant by muddle and unraveling, when I can tell it so, I'm also rifle from a javelin. When such affairs as sorties and surprises I'm aware of it, and when I know precisely what is meant by only saying. When I have learned what progress has been made in modern gunnery, when I know what of tactics and a novice in a nunnery, in short, when I'm a smattering of elemental strategy. You'll see that the little gentleman is accepted. For an entertaining laboratory party and adventure is only never come to the beginning of the sequence. So the manifestation will happen in the middle, and the normal body to
Actually, something that I think this was Edinburgh GNS. They say strategy. I can't remember what the lines. They say strategy, and then there was a whole kind of business where they discussed what the line was. You'll say a better Major General had never rode a horse. For some reason, that really tickled me.
Here's what I would like. I would like at that moment, I'd like a desk to come out, and then I want him to sit at the desk and then just get out like a whole set of books, like the librettos, the rhyming dictionary, the whole thing, and just sit down and for 4 to 8 minutes, just be thinking really hard. And then let it just keep going, and he's just thinking. What I'm tired about is the fact that when people add material to the show, it is always overcooked and overdone. It's never subtle business. And the fact that like it's never strategy, it's always strategy. Oh, I've got it. It's fruity.
Imagine if he went strategy. Well, now I've introduced myself and then just cut the song short. But then later, at like the most inappropriate moment you could possibly imagine, you'll say a better measure of strategy.
That is,
and you could choose, and so choose the moment when you know the audience would have completely forgotten.
Could it be
and
after
it will
the
be
interval?
like perhaps when he's just been like captured, when he's just been captured by like the Pirate King, and like is it your time? Well, the course is where the field. You're saying I don't know what the most funny moment. It has to be when everyone's forgotten.
I know what it is. You have to actually massacre the score so it's not in a gap, and it's going to be here. We triumph now, for well we trow. You'll say a better Major General, and then the orchestra does the whole ending, and then it finishes. Your mortal careers cut short, and just right back in. Do it. Same key in it. No, it's a one step away on the circle of fifths. So there you go. I gotta tell you a story. This is the first Gilbert Sullivan song I ever learned back in March of 2009 when I first listened to Pirates of Penzance, and it was the Broadway album.
Oh wow!
And I got really into it. I'm like, I'm learning this, and I printed out the lyrics. And I was at my friend's birthday party, and his birthday was March 5th, so I was in that birthday house. And I'm sitting there, and I'm not even like in the party. I'm like just walking through the house while people are partying, reading the lyrics to memorize them.
Aww.
And I performed Modern Major General, the very first Gilbert and Sullivan song I ever performed, on the 2nd of April in 2009. And
at your school? You did it at your school, didn't you?
My school.
That is the cutest thing.
So I love it, and it is great, but we do need to go on. I just want to point out, because I know someone's going to say, I was going hard on the fact that the English hate the French and the Latins so much. I hate the Romans. And
It's
you're gonna
Romans.
say, they're gonna say, but you Americans don't pronounce anything right. And I'm gonna tell you, use is language, buddy. And
It'll never be could care less.
If someone understands
right.
someone understands what you're saying, it's fine.
Yeah, no, I get that.
And
I get that.
And a lot of times it's a little tough because it's in the spelling, because we all know, you know, some words are spelled differently, and it's like,
you're right about aluminum. That was a mistake on our end.
yeah, well, that's fine.
But it's now become correct through repeated usage.
Understood. I just, the amount of times that somebody, and it happens all the time in like the Gilbert and Sullivan forums on Facebook, that someone,
snobbery, it sucks.
some
I hate
ornery
snobbery.
person goes, oh well, you put the wrong version of color. It's where's the U in color? As if like that's undermining your whole sentence.
I know,
Like,
I hate that. I hate that.
Yeah, but you know, like those are the kinds of people that, even if they're Labour, they're Tory. You know what I mean? Like they're Tory and philosophically.
Again, it's because British people like to complain about things.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
We like to complain.
And I love to complain about that. Number 12. This one I was a little flummoxed by. You got an 8, I got a 14. I love this, but I think I maybe demerited it on a technicality. And I want to know a little bit of what your thought process is and where this fits. And it is for a month to dwell in a dungeon cell, which in my mind is the climax to the Act 1 finale, and a chorus song that has 2 patter verses, but is really like the show-stopping Act 1 finale of like you just did your Act 1 finales, and this is one of them. I
know, but I just had to include this because to me it's so pattery, and the chorus do patter. I think this is apart from like maybe the Taratiddles bit in Ruddigore, this is like the best instance I can think of chorus doing patter.
The lady at my love has caught me talking to another. Which
I'm gonna
point out, we nearly lost it.
Maybe I should have included that.
In 2018, we nearly lost it. Y'all started a rush. Well, you weren't in the show, but y'all started a rush, and I was conducting it. And you can watch the video on the thing, and you can see. And then you hear, "Won't believe my statement," because, and you hear them starting to rush. And then I nail it, and everybody in the audience applauds. So
they did applaud.
They applauded while the music was still going, because they went, I think they both appreciated that we nailed the speed, and then we nailed the recovery when we almost lost it. Which at the festival, especially that old Harrogate stage, you were singing in time with the orchestra is so hard. So
my god,
people were so used to being like, oh well, you're gonna rush. So tell me, this song, I love Hildebrand. I love the Three Boys. I think that this is probably the best piece of music on the whole list. And
I mean, for me, like this got a really I give it a 19 for music and a 16 for lyrics. I think that the music in this is insane. That until that time you're hearing, it's that bit that Joanna pointed out.
Right, the basses go up, the tenors meet them.
Oh, I love that. And the your mandate, disobey, your life's a penalty you'll pay. Your mandate, disobey, the penalty your lives will pay. It's so dramatic. 9 out of 10 for dramatic.
Historically, you love when they put a pause at the end.
No, I actually don't love that. I actually opposite of love that.
Is we love ironic statements. There's a very interesting thing you can do. It's the 1954-ish D'Oyly Carte recording. Is in the era where, because they had started performing Princess Ida again around that time in that beautiful surreal set, which, if I understand correctly, one of the societies in Texas owns that set, and it recently, like, it was almost, they had to get rid of it, but then there was a quick GoFundMe for like, can we raise the money to save this? And that set is incredible. But it's got like swirly ice cream cone castles.
Okay,
The
I don't know
point-
the one you're talking about, but I'm going to look.
But at the
afterwards.
time, there was no interval between the first and second act, which meant that the ladies of Adamant could not be in the Act 1 finale
No, oh my god,
because of their costume change. But that means that on that recording, that section, till that time we'll hear it, there's no altos and sopranos. So that tenor bass part becomes like the entirety of the chorus texture, which is kind of interesting, though
I'm gonna listen to that.
Not my
Yeah.
ideal, but that is an interesting recording. That's one of the Peter Pratt recordings, who was so much better than late Martin Green that I'm so grateful that Martin Green had retired before he took over. And I listen, this is, you can get no complaint from me on this one. I just felt like, given that it wasn't like someone's patter song, it was hard to give it super high rate. I have a big soft spot. When I conducted and directed the show, I had the footlights with like red and green light splashed across the stage, but they weren't on. And as I'm conducting, I had my left hand on the toggle, and it went.
Ooh, nice.
So we had these nice little things, which I listen. It was not a union show. I wasn't cutting any light person out of a job, but it was definitely a pain in the neck. And there've been too many shows where I was like doing the footlights while I was conducting, and then
Oh my god, wow.
missed a bar of 5/4, and never in GNS, but in like, you know, Susanna or Ariadne of Naxos or something. So let's move on to, this is another upset.
Another one.
Another one.
Another brother.
You gave it 18. I gave it 9. It ranked 11. It is a pattern to professors of monarchical autonomy.
I'm interested to hear why you rank this one so highly. I like it. You know.
I was struck by this number instantly when I first heard it. And when I directed my very first GNS review in 2011, I put this in. And I was just like, I don't know, like it didn't occur to me that this isn't a great tune. I just finished rereading the Gervais Hughes book on Sullivan from 1960. And he's like, oh, it's one of those other many songs of Sullivan's. He disses Grand Duke and Utopia and clearly has never heard them. And he mentions the pedal point, which to me is the fun part of it. I did it recently with the guitar, and I'm like, boom, boom, ba, boom, boom, ba, boom, like hitting
I
that
love
D
that.
over and
That's
over.
fun.
And it's got such a good groove. And
it reminds me, actually, of some 7 men form an association.
yeah, it's got this,
But it's about to professors of. Isn't that's the rhythm, isn't it?
it is dotted and not triplety.
It's not swung. Yeah.
So it's got this little jerkiness to it, but then that build, whatever ceremonial can be practiced inexpensively, then the quick scale,
And when
up,
you're come to
be
be very cheap,
and then
observe. Hey, I think it's so funny. I gave it a really good mark for comedy.
and that melody, it's played like a little dream ballet. We made such a meal out of that in Baron's Court.
You know, actually, when I was marking the music, I must admit, I totally forgot about that. So I should have given it maybe at least 2 more marks for music.
I'm obsessed with the fact that in the middle of the song, there's this huge break meant for the guys to pass the thing along. And
that is hilarious. I think like where this one falls down for me is just like patter power.
It's very under patter powered.
That's the thing, like this, that, and just like dramatic impact. It's just not very, it's just very kind of, it's a bit like When I Went to the Bar, you know, it's just a bit subdued. But hey, it's really funny, and I the lyrics are really great.
I liked bringing out the rock star element of it the second time I did my show, where I sang this and then I sang Broken Down Critter afterwards, a little like Bowie, and decided like maybe that's what I got to play the Grand Duke, and I got to figure out like So I have no idea. He's going to be my white whale role, I guess, like the one.
Didn't you do a kind of cool guitar bit for the boing, boing,
Oh yeah, I had my wah pedal.
Yeah.
I made it gnarly. So in 10th place is a little upset, 17 for you, 8 for me. This is the judges' song. When I
I love this one. I'm all
good
over
friends.
this one.
When I good friends. When I good friends.
I think this is my favorite of all the kind of like famous old man ones.
Oh, it's so jocular and the text is
so
funny.
And it's so characterful. And she may very well pass for 43 with in the dusk with the light behind her. This is such a clever classic line. I love that. And just all the business that can be done. And yeah, it's this cute. This is so, I am here for this song. This is like one of my favorite kind of GNS songs that are very GNS-y and very popular. This is right up there for me. I love it.
Yeah, I've never gotten to play the judge, but I did this in my show recently too, and really grown to go, this is the one where like I can use so much energy. I can throw an entire cannonball of energy into this, which is, some of these are more like this. This one can be, I think the judge can afford to, especially given trial by jury's odd nature anyway, can afford to be quite unhinged.
And it's a question.
Rachel. Oh no, Rachel. That's a fake pause.
No, I'm not saying it should be a pause. I'm just saying the way the kind of musical language works for me is it's funny that it's funny that it goes up to here. I'm just kind of saying that I like the way that melodically it asks a question then answers it.
I give you $100.
But I do like the pause on vainly to disparage. No. Yes. As a crowd pleaser, come on.
It's
that one you do.
Well, I do that, but then I don't say yes. I tried two. The first one I did is, you're quite right, he never said that.
Yeah, like, no.
No, I'm actually
like,
like,
no.
I'm like, you're right, I'm exaggerating. He never said that.
Yeah.
And then the second time I did like no, like he did, like I'm not even joking, like he did, whatever it was, like it, in an attempt to go, I know this is the trad business, I'm gonna take the trad business and do a weird long downplayed version of it.
What's that line? I can see you going up, center, and off. Can you? Yep. Wouldn't it be good to try vainly to disparage? No. Yep. See, people
like
have to
think outside the box,
yep.
even when you do the things that you think are what it is.
Yeah.
So let's go on.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Grand Duke,
yep.
9th place, a monarch who boasts intellectual graces.
Yay! I love this one. What did I give this one? I gave this a position. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I gave it 9th.
Mine is 10th.
And it is
9th. It is 9th. Oh? We're pretty on the same page here. I
love it.
Of course, this is one that I also struggle sometimes to remember. There were nights in Baron's Court when we did 12 shows in a row where I would still go, what am I about to say? But I think it's settled. Yeah,
because the words are very similar of the two verses, aren't they? The start, because at the starts of both verses have like a similar kind of thought process behind them.
And the chorus has a very hard time with their response as well. But the I do adore this song, and it is plot heavy, which I think actually is kind of fun too. It does feel to me like one of the most challenging of the patter songs.
It's done till I perish, a monarch am I, a monarch am I, a monarch am I, a monarch, a monarch, a monarch, a monarch is he. Oh, but musically, it's one of my favorites for sure. Actually, I only gave it a 15, weirdly, but I'm not sure why I didn't give it higher. Maybe I think because I marked it like you did, I figured out which ones were 20, then I just went down very methodically. So I guess that's why I got a 15. That must have just been ones I liked even more. But yeah, I get such a kick out of this one. It really feels like a proper kind of like show-stopping number, and in a way that all the chorus can enjoy. But I just love that. It feels very operatic to me.
Yes, I appreciate the ones on this list, and there's a couple more we'll probably get into that allow the singer an opportunity to sing nice, big, long, loud lyric notes and aren't just quavers.
And the meta joke in this is one of my favorites. Oh, I do not pretend to be very prophetic. I fancy I know what you're going to say by a pushing a monarch of ten energetic, a very great deal of it done in a day. Oh, it's simply uncanny. His power prophetic. He's perfectly right. We were going to say by a pushing a monarch. Because what's funny is that that's making fun of the fact that the chorus always repeat the principle, but the principle is actually just predicting what the chorus are going to say, which makes them say it. So it's like a kind of backwards causation, kind of this weird Newcomb's box paradox, if anyone knows about that who did philosophy. It's like it's an example of backwards causation, and that pleases me.
It's the power of suggestion, but also it fits in line with the Grand Duke's overall theme of filling your role that isn't in your part. You know, what everybody's doing in Grand Duke feels like it's scripted and like this is what has to happen, which is a tip. The duty thing in the shows is often quite profound, but the fact that these are actors in the cast that play the characters are actors, I think that theme is very profoundly explored in the Grand Duke. Let's move on to another hit.
I love it.
In 8th place is I've Jibe and Joke.
Ooh, I love this one. Like, the only thing about this for me is that it's not really that passionate, but I love everything else about it.
This is high on my enjoyment category, to the point that it's one that I've frequently brought in for auditions, and I've really enjoyed like the range it lets you display. And the patter is pattery enough for most people, but I do admit that it's not super vivid, impressive, wild patter.
Because it is definitely the best example of that post Act 1, pre Act 1 finale palette cleanser.
Yes, it's also in such an interesting spot character wise, because Elsie's gone off, and so thou art a jester, eh? I certainly like some of my jests out of place. He's like a little disoriented by the last 5 minutes. But then
this is him at his best, though. He's so sure of himself here and what his skills are and what he can do. It's great.
Right. Well, he has to go right into advertising mode, and the form this takes of this, I can't even call it a recitative in 2 verses. It's like the first part and the second part. There's very few songs that are structured like this. There's like this little. There's the first 2 pages and then the second 2 pages, and they're perfectly linked. And the second that the winds come in, you have, and I'll tell you the truth about this number in terms of tempo, and we did it in 2021, and I conducted it at the festival. The violins have, they have these very quick notes, and that's how fast you should conduct it. Conduct it to the speed that the violins are comfortable, much like in IOLANTHE. You can't conduct it as fast as you hear it. And I once saw a conductor conduct IOLANTHE, for example, and then have the tempo for rehearsals for 4 months. And then he got to the orchestra and they're like, we can't play that fast. And he went, instead of going, I'll slow down, he said, we'll just cut the pizzicato then. Which is, he just had them play, which is not what fairies sound like, buddy.
That's a bit like Beautifully Blue the Sky, isn't it?
Yeah, they're written by the same composer.
No, get out.
So I love I've Jibe and Joke, and I find that it's often given me a lot of dimension. Maybe I'm actually a little stagnated with it because I haven't done Yeomen in 8 years, and
oh wow,
as a Jack Point, and I feel like my version of it is now not like I'm wearing the wrong pants whenever I put this song on, because I've not got like It's really funny sometimes when you have a role you know really well. Guy, MIKADO, this one, Lord Chancellor, the ones I've done the most. But I haven't done any of them in a minute. And if I do one of the songs, sometimes it's like, I feel like I'm doing my version from 10 years ago. But I can't just like put on that pair of trousers. I have to like go into the clothes making place and like fashion a completely new set based on that new production. And this song needs a refresh for me, so maybe you can help me with that. Yay
or nay to the little pause that some people do at the end? Should always gild the philosophic pill. Nay.
No, they're all bad. All of them are bad, and all the times people speak the notes are bad. And here's the thing: I'm not a snob, but I just know that I just know that people often fall victim to the echo chamber of tradition. And
tradition isn't necessarily passed down from the source.
It's completely, there's no way to know. There's no way to know any of it. And
that's why I remember when I was doing an interview for the GNS festival, and I was asked, do you like traditional productions? And I said, well, yes, I do. In a way, I think my productions are way more traditional than a lot of productions out there, because I feel like I'm very careful to channel exactly what the text was intending to do. Whereas I don't just follow like the telephone game. You know, I don't just rehash traditions that have kind of got twisted over the years and people have forgotten the source of them. You know, I actually try and just go back to the text, make sure the music, well, and you help me do this to like make sure all the music is really exactly there. And if we're making any changes, why we're making those changes.
That the reason why people often do the pausing and the parlando is because they think it italicizes the text better. And I don't always think that that's necessary. And in fact, I actually feel like the play out of this number, which is has such a wonderful, again, abruptness that if you have he make us better federal creatures, why it should always go the philosophic pill is so perfect for establishing and how came you to leave your last employee. Like it's it's like it's very much like it's not what that guy was looking to talk about. So speaking of pauses that are not helpful, and in fact, I think these pauses in the following song are there to help singers who are not usually the patter guy. It is If You Want a Receipt for That Popular Mystery in 7th place, which I had at honestly 4.
Like I didn't think that I was going to rank this song highly. I honestly didn't. But then when I listened to it, I realized, you know what? Actually, it is a banger. It is such a banger, and it's a list, but. And I have zero emotional connection to this song. And I don't even think it's that funny. Yet, I think it's brilliant. I think it's super dramatic. I absolutely love. I give it a 17 for music, 15 for lyrics, even though it's a list. It's got such patter power. I enjoy it so much. I give it an 8 for enjoyment. To be fair, part of that is the yes, 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 a heavy dragoon, a heavy dragoon, a heavy. And do you remember the choreo I did for this one with the guys doing their kind of like little movements? I love it.
Isn't it incredible?
This one is so good.
This is an interesting.
Love it.
This is one of the many songs that's like, here's who I am, but instead it's here's who we are. Yeah. It's one. The Colonel represents the chorus. But he's saying not I am the heavy dragoon. It's we are, like a heavy dragoon, for example, is all of these things, and we are all a heavy dragoon.
And the thing is, and I don't know who any of the guys are, and I still love the song. Like who any of the guys in that list are, like honestly. But I still absolutely love it.
Yeah, some of the references are a little esoteric, but they
narrative power of Dickens. I guess I know who Dickens is, but you know, honestly, like. I don't care that I don't get any of the references. It's just like a rap. I love the way the words scan. I love the way the names flow. I don't care that I don't get what it's about. I love it.
This is why this one is so good. It's because Sullivan went, I'm not dealing with Grossmith. I can actually make it good. I can deal like he's like the temple can handle it. And it's harmonically more interesting.
It is,
and the tune is leapy and strange at times. But, and then it's got wonderful orchestral touches. The chorus is used effectively. Plus, it's got a cool structure too. It's like intro, verse. There's a whole intro that happens, and coming right out of that chorus number, it's just a perfect little key change. This number is worth the price of admission for this entire role.
So
for enjoyment, I did the Colonel.
The Colonel's a great role
for us at Eddington. I did the Colonel then, and I'd never done it before. But I really enjoyed getting to do this one. So high marks for me.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's go to 6.
Let's go to number 6.
You have this at number 3. I have this at number 11. It's Oh, a Private Buffoon is a Lighthearted Loon. So I did rank the other Jack Point song higher. You have this one very high, and
this is my number 3. I guess I gave the lyrics a 17. Emotional comedic I gave a 10. Patter power I gave a 9, because I mean honestly this is so wordy, and if anyone can nail this, I think it has such an effect. And I do think, you know, maybe it's not so like it's not, obviously it's not as famous as Modern Major General, but I mean, I think amongst the GNS community, this one does have like a lot of standing as like one of like the most powerful songs. It is considered to be like Jack Point's like best song, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is. And it's really easy. I mean, you and I had a really nice time when we did it at my house in April, when I just recited the lyrics.
Yeah.
And I actually preferred that in a weird way. I think the music in this one, you know what, this is one of the ones too where you gave it a 3. I'm like, I get it. I think I struggle a bit because I also, speaking of the pair of trousers, I've often found that Jack Point is an emotionally taxing experience.
Yeah.
And that this song has a lot to do with it. So I actually maybe I'm suffering too much, but it's definitely like a tough one because it's a little close to home.
What's interesting is I recently filmed me doing the Yeoman dialogue. I've not yet kind of done the analysis part of the video yet, but I actually found that even though I've put a great deal of thought into how to direct Jack Point, like I feel like because I had a really, really great Jack Point when we did it a couple of years ago. So I thought, oh, I'm going to nail these lines. I'm going to do a great Jack Point. But actually, I found it way harder than I thought I would. I couldn't really quite get the tone right. Apart from in this scene, I really think I did a good job in the scene with Wilfred, just because we'd done that scene together. But I did find that I found it really hard to kind of get the tone of Jack Point. But this song really does resonate with me because it's something that I've had to personally kind of go through in my own performing life. Like you have to kind of keep up the pretense that everything's okay. I remember like when I was on a cruise ship and I had something really horrible happen to me, and then I had to sing Walking on Sunshine, and that was like a really weird experience. Like, walking on sunshine, and I was like, oh god, I'm dying inside. So it's kind of funny, but I am so into that, like laughing at things and like feeling like, wow, like you just have to laugh, don't you? Because I'm about to crack open, and you're just going to have to keep a smile on your face, otherwise you're just going to burst into tears. But like, your head may rack with a bilious attack and your senses with toothache you're losing. Don't be mopey in flight, they don't fine you for that if you're properly quaint and amusing. Though your wife ran away with a soldier that day and took with her your trifle of money, bless your heart, they don't mind. They're exceedingly kind, they don't blame you so long as you're funny. You know, it's just like it's so manic and desperate. Like, so just purely for what this one means, like to me, and I think lots of other performers out there, like that you feel like a monkey, and to me, like this is like a big message to the audience about how tough it is to be a performer. It's not just playing around on stage. It's like you face like constant rejection, disappointment, criticism. You're expected to be really, really thick-skinned and yet also be like really sensitive and emotional on stage. And it's like, actually, you'll find that a lot of the best actors have got really thin skins because that's what makes them so good, because they absorb everything and then they understand everything, they take everything in. So actually thick-skinned people usually make terrible actors because they're just impervious to everything, and there's no softness to them. But when you get someone who's like properly vulnerable in this role, oh my god, it's everything. And this song to me is the pinnacle of Jack Point. Not even the end, like this is the pinnacle of Jack Point. This scene, this song. My speech is over.
Good speech. Yes, I think that my 11th ranking doesn't make any sense to me either. So I'm happy to see that you moved it up to 6. Now I'll say we're at the top 5. And the top 5, we're in a pretty good amount of agreement, so we're going to enjoy the love fest here.
Nice.
In 5th place, though we both ranked at 7th place, is If You Give Me Your Attention.
Oh,
Which I'm glad to see that you liked as much as I did.
I was surprised I liked it as much as I did, because this was one that I remember discussing ages ago, like, oh, is this even a patter song? It's so slow. I don't really get why this should be a patter song, but it's not a baritone song either. I remember me saying, should this be on the baritone arias list? And you were like, no, it's a patter song. And so I think I marked it like relatively low for patter power. I only gave it a 5, but honestly, everything else, it just aced. Like enjoyment 8, emotional comedic impact 9, dramatic impact 8, lyrics 17, music 18. I really love this. I listened to it several times and I was really surprised at how much I loved it.
It's got great
if you
music.
give me your attention, like that opening line, if you give me your attention, I will tell you what I am. It's so honest and he's so fabulous. It's perfect for him. It's really great.
Yeah, I'd like to play this part someday, and I've gotten to sing this one now a lot in my solo material shows. This, gosh, he's such a guy. He's such a dude.
He's such a dude.
And I enjoyed playing it genuinely like he didn't understand how. I do not understand. I cannot think why I'm not more liked. I don't get it. Don't know. I feel like I'm doing good for everybody. So
yeah.
It's beautiful musically though. It's got a wonderful melody, and the accompaniment, I apologize, this desk is low. The accompaniment is so, it aids the patter a lot. Like it's it's got what could feel very perfunctory, and I think it's maybe a number that isn't performer proof, but a lot of these numbers
especially not for the chorus, they always try and come in with he can't think why in verse 1 and 2, don't they?
They love that. What an interesting choice. That's not typical that happens. So, and
of course this fits in topsy-turvy as well, because I remember, like, as a Princess Ida was the first GNS show I ever did, and I remember watching topsy-turvy just after we realized it would be Princess Ida, and I was like, oh wow, oh, this song's from Princess Ida, we're about to be in this show, we're about to do this show, and I was like, oh, this is a cool song.
When I directed Ida a number of years ago, I had the cast over for a topsy-turvy watch, and we got a big kick out of those Princess Ida scenes, and definitely felt we were at the defense of the show when the characters in the film are not don't care as much for it. And yeah, this song is an aggressive delight.
But there's something about the kind of, I don't know what the word is, like tonal structure, like chord progression of I've an irritating chuckle, I've an irritating sneer, I've a something I have fascinating leer. There's something that's really exciting about that progression. I love my fellow creatures, I do all the things I can, but when everybody says I'm such a disagreeable man and I can't think why, it keeps amping up, it doesn't it? It's like,
absolutely,
oh, so exciting.
Yeah, it is one that gives me some performer anxiety. I do find the words are a little hard to remember, and I learned recently the last verse is, but everybody says I am a disagreeable man. He does this thing now and then where like 2 verses are the same and 1 is different, which is harder than when 3 verses are different. So we're going to see some more examples of that coming up. But
there is one, I know the one you're going to talk about. Yeah.
So in 4th place, we both ranked this pretty high, 5 and 6, me and you respectively. But in 4th place is The Law is the True Embodiment, which
another great entrance. Ooh.
So this always, as a many-time Lord Chancellor, this is such a gift. Waiting in the Wings, where that introduction plays, which is its own number, but then I get to come on to those rapping snare drums.
Oh God.
It's so it's like you're just delivered the thing. And as a singer, I've always been very gratified by how rangy this song is. Lots of old mites playing, quite prepared to marry again. But there'd be the deuce too. So you have a range of an octave and a fourth within the space of just a couple bars. And it's such a, like, that's my happiest range, is like the classic Gilbert and Sullivan baritone B flat to E flat. It's just, so nice. So that
the music in this is just off the charts. Oh,
and it has
so jolly.
Another one of like the most incorrectly sung melodies in all of Gilbert and Sullivan.
Oh yeah,
because the chords change on the beats 1 and 4 of the 6/8, but the melody has to anticipate the chord change, and a lot of singers struggle with this.
Oh yeah,
it kind of goes.
What bit is that?
The law is the true embodiment. It goes down and up early relative to the chord change.
I would definitely have sung that wrong.
Because the law is the true embodiment. And it's so wild to me because sometimes I've been so oppressive to myself for learning these things correctly that when I hear it incorrectly, or like when I think about the incorrect version that it might have been what I first learned or first heard, I can't even, like, it hurts my mouth. But yeah, just the proof of, like, especially Utopia and Juke recordings by the D'Oyly Carte, which were recorded under a little more of a hurry and less polish than usual. Lots of wrong notes. But even in IOLANTHE, there are wrong notes and wrong rhythms in plain sight.
But like, how about the emotional resonance of this one as well?
1,000.
Like, there's one for you and one for me and one for thou and one for thee, but never, oh never, a one for me.
I'm not so old.
And how he's thinking about IOLANTHE.
And I'm quite prepared to marry again. The way the Lord Chancellor has to convince himself that he's ready to marry again, when we know, if we've seen the show before, he's not. So not ready for that. And
don't you hate it when people play it like, never, oh, ever?
A lot of Lord Chancellors are people who, again, want to play, but just want to be a funny guy on stage and don't think ahead and remember how the show ends. In some ways, this is, I mean, I think I still feel like it's probably one of the best. Maybe even is the best.
Oh, I love him.
But
I mean, certainly, I think, like, collectively, he's got the definitely the best music of any of the Patter guys.
Very lucky, and we're gonna hit some of that soon. In third place, I ranked it 3, you ranked it 4, is Am I Alone and Unobserved? I Am. By Bunthorne, which this one, I feel like my high ranking for this, especially for music, was highly motivated by the recitative and how strong that is. I think that the song is perfect for what it needs to be, but as a performer, I've often found that it's a hard one to nail. That's one where the text is the same twice and different the third time. But the elegance we saw David Jones take with this song and how beautifully he sang it in 2019 reminded me so much that just, like, this is one of the ones, like I've Jibe and Joke, that is such a, it's not very pattery. And that could be such a legato melody. And again, a lot of fudgy notes in there. A lot of times when people get too texty with it, it loses the beauty of these melodies. And truthfully, though Sullivan usually doubles it in the first violins, the sound of dun, 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 is not something to emulate. You want na da 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 bum 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 da 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 bum da da. Beautiful melody, but this recitative is really a work of genius.
Oh, I mean, like, honestly, I would have, like, really, musically, the recit is like a 19, and the song itself is like a 14, or maybe a 15. But you know, I love this recit.
19, yeah, 19
so dramatic. I mean, this got a really high dramatic mark for me. I got an 8 for dramatic. I give it a 19 for lyrics. I saved my 20 for one in particular that we haven't talked about yet. but I find it really funny, and it's not so much like emotional as in like it touches me, but it's just so very pertinent, because I know, because those people he's talking about still exist today. Like if this young man expresses himself in terms too deep for me, why, what a most particularly deep young man this deep young man must be. I may have got that chorus wrong, but something like that.
But
but I love that. It's just so, it's
and that,
so
and that
pertinent.
you don't even need to know what you're talking about for it to.
And it's about how like so much stuff today is just so empty. And he even talks about that. He even says to patients, everything is hollow. Are you hollow? Because no, I have died. But because everything is commonplace. And you wonder, like, and so something that I've not really ever considered is that, like, perhaps Bunthorne, I mean, obviously he is kind of pretending he likes poetry for the ladies, but at the same time, he is obviously a highly intelligent person as well. And maybe this is just his way of trying to exercise his genius mind, because nobody else is anywhere near to his level. And actually, he doesn't need to be like a villain or nasty. I mean, he's a bit gross to patients, but I mean, he is just a genius who has found an outlet for his genius that even he doesn't really like appreciate or respect, but he is actually like a really clever guy.
Well, yeah, I get it. I mean, I may have told the anecdote before, but I'll tell it again briefly, about when in 12th grade, 11th grade, I wrote a poem intending that I win an award. So I wrote like the most pretentious artsy poem I could think of, and won this top $100 prize for the kids poetry contest as an 11th grader. And I look at it, I'm like, no, this is so hollow what I wrote. And it's funny because obviously poetry isn't hollow. So he hasn't gone through the trouble to really look at like poetry critically. And it is,
but he's just trolling everyone.
It's an interesting, it's a cherry picking situation. But the point of it is I think Gilbert recognized that there were poets who weren't worth their salt, but who were still getting praised because of the fad. That, and I'm sure there were Bunthorns out there. People often talk about who were the models for Bunthorne and Grosvenor, and they mention so and so and so and so on. The truth is, the poets that they're really the models of probably aren't famous anymore. Probably people that like were just part of the fad and trying to, and that like you'd see published and you'd go, why is this being published? If you knew any better. So the song has a lot to say, and it's got so much vividness to the orchestration, particularly the descending melody before "Let Me Confess."
Oh yeah. Let me confess.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, and when he says my medievalism's affectation, I until we did it, I thought it was medievalism's apostrophe. I thought the affectation was owned by the medievalism. I hadn't quite understood that, but he's saying my medievalism is affectation.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, but it took David Jones performing it to make me realize that. And then he said it and I was like, oh yeah, that's what that means. I'd always been baffled by that.
Easy bafflement. And I'll remind everybody of that beautiful pitch. One of a more love of admiration. A tritone, which sometimes gets fudged because it is a hard, it's a hard interval to pick out of nowhere. But it shows like the acid in his brain. But speaking of brains, the next character does have a brain. And in in a unanimous second place, is My Name is John Wellington Wells, which received very high marks.
Mm.
Out of a possible 170, it received 155.
Yeah.
And gosh, if I have to sing a patter song right now, if someone says sing a patter song, I will always pick this one. This is my go-to.
I think this is like for lyrics, this was the only one I gave a 20 to. There is a reason I docked a point off the one we haven't talked about yet, and I'll tell you why that is when we get to it. But for this, I gave it a 20 because honestly, the way these lyrics are constructed is absolute perfection. And I get such a kick out of it when it is performed really precisely, especially with all those like traditional tempo changes. I love how exciting it is. I do think that it's important to add stakes to it, as we were discussing in the Patter Rolls video, to like make this be like a desperate sales pitch, a little bit like Jibe and Joke, but almost like he needs this gig, otherwise he can't feed himself tonight. And so like this is like his my name is Remorse Wells. It's such a showpiece, and as he was saying, it's a showpiece both for the performer and for the character. Oh.
Yeah, this is one that works perfect out of context. So it's always easy for me to just want to do this one. It doesn't emotionally destroy me like some of the other ones can do. And I'm never worried about the words.
My name is Wellington Wells. I'm the Julian magic spells, and blessings and curses, the end of the places and prophecies, witches and nails. If you want to copy to the tracks, if you're not a rich uncle Max, go to the girl that is a genius, and to see the reacts. If you're just a bit of magic, without erasing the posthumous shame, with the things that are criminal or tragic, there's no human house in the tree. Love is until we've qualities of it, never knowledge if anyone learns. We're keeping our days more private or private to reasons of memory times. And right, everything we know is like security into futility. So we're kissing clear on this, we feel like liberty, eternity, eternity. Thoughts are regular, temper plus regular, lashes are magical, feelings are natural, axes are nominal, son of a couple. And if you want to be meant to be not sure, take the quality on. If anyone anything lacks, you'll find it already in stacks. If you'd only look in on the resident genuine 70 Syriacs. You get to raise your hosts of ghosts, and that without creepy things with wings and rotting you clouds of shrouds and horrify you vastly. He can rack your brains with chains and juries, men and gods. Then you have to change so empty with an imagine for this attack. This humanity with an imagine feature that we drop the ghost of the magic second. Polyetology, immunology, metrobiology, this is mythology, spirituality, hypothesis, psychology, psychology, My name is Wellington Wells, till it in magic spells. Blessings and curses, the end of the places and prophecies, witches and nails. If anyone anything lacks, they'll find it already in stacks. If you don't look at other reasons, genuine 70 Syriacs.
By complete irony, one of my few mistakes in my recent show where I did that few dozen numbers, I had a flub in this. I've never flubbed this one before, but I will tell you that this is one of the ones that I found a wrong word I was always doing, a wrong phrase, which was, and if anything anyone lacks. And I was always singing, and if anyone anything lacks.
Is it not that?
And if anything anyone lacks is correct.
Really? I've always done that wrong as well. I've always thought of that wrong. I'm not sure you're the only person that's made that mistake, you know.
No, because they both kind of have a logic.
I thought it was anyone, anything, but it's not that. It's anything, anyone. And if anyone anything lacks, I thought it was one first. Oh, that's so strange.
Do they both make sense grammatically?
Yes.
So yeah, that caught me off guard recently, and I went, So I was so focused on getting that right that I had a moment where I did actually have the boring tautology, photometrology, electrobiology, and I had like a gibberish moment, which is very unlike me.
Yeah.
But unfortunately,
yeah.
it happened. It happened, and I have no excuses. So unfortunately, that's now in the atmosphere. If anyone anything lacks, I love that. Good for them. And I never
It's
knew
so
that.
easy to get in your head. It's like when you get in your head, that's like death.
It's death, but when you discover
and it can happen so easily.
2 days
like,
before the show, you learn a word
Yeah.
you're doing wrong. When I am so competitive with myself. I am not a competitive person, except in this one regard, that I must do the best version I can do always.
Oh yeah, I'm the same. I get very upset with myself when I make even the tiniest error. But
Because
I forgive other people's errors.
But we know
like,
we can do better than that.
Yeah.
So
I beat myself up so much for like because like other people will be saying, oh, I can't believe I forgot like a whole phrase, and I'll be saying, oh, I left a tiny bit too long of a pause before I said that line. You know, it's like, Rachel, no one cares. But yeah, I really beat myself up.
So sometimes a number you know really well, you might find a detail. There's always a detail.
I think actually on the video of Grand Duke, I said I just couldn't say the word magnificent. I didn't forget the line. I just suddenly couldn't say it. I said, and as we produce our magnificent, and then I just like almost panicked, took a breath, and said, and as we produce our magnificent I just couldn't say it. I just went, but it was because, and it was interesting. It was because right before I went on stage, I realized that I'd forgotten to take my pill the evening before, because I've been feeling weird all day, and I'd forgotten to take my pill, and it has very severe withdrawal effects. And the thing is, until that point, I'd just been like, oh, I feel a bit strange, I feel a bit odd. But then the second I realized, oh, it's because I forgot to take my pill, I suddenly just went, oh my god, I'm going to forget all my lines, everything's going to go wrong. And I just really got in my head. And then I didn't forget anything, but I just suddenly lost control of myself, and I lost all confidence in myself for just like a few minutes. And then after that scene, I was fine. But just, oh, it's so dangerous to get in your head just before you go on stage. Really dangerous.
Rach, don't lose confidence. Confidence, Liam. Confidence.
But anyway, yeah, cracking song. And I will say that, you know, this one only got a 7 for me for like emotional comedy, because it's not that funny, really. And it's got comic potential, but it's not really emotional, unless, as you say, you could have had stakes to it. But yeah, in every other regard, this is just so good. 17 out of 20 for music, 8 for dramatic, 10 for patter power, 9 for enjoyment.
Yeah, given the patter power category for me only had 3 10s, and they were Major General and the top 2.
Yeah, me too, exactly the same.
These to me are like, because I think that they're in a ways very vivid numbers too. A lot of the patter songs to me, I mean, just think the fact that, like, compare John Wellington Wells to My Boy You May Take It From Me. It's just outrageous, the difference there. So let's get to number 1. And number 1 was another song I learned very early on in my little baby career. And the second I heard this one, I showed it to every single other 18-year-old I'd ever met. Couldn't stop thinking about it. It blew my mind how intense, powerful it was. And at number 1, of course, it is the Nightmare song, Love Unrequited, from IOLANTHE, which received from me a perfect score. Okay. But you had a docked point, so I'm excited to hear about that. I docked
2 points. I docked it. Actually, you know what? I'm going to change. It is a 10 for enjoyment. I'm sorry. So for me, it only loses a single point. And it loses its single points because black silk with gold clocks is pretty much impossible to say.
Not gonna argue. That is
I do not like that lyric, and it's unnecessary. Like that could have so easily been something that was easier to say, and it's the one tiny thing that mars this song for me. That like it would have been absolutely, utterly, dramatically, emotionally, lyrically, musically perfect if not for that.
Can it be
thing.
black silk and gold clocks? Even that's
black silk and gold clocks.
Even that's better.
Black silk and gold clocks.
But gold clocks, that's rough.
Gold clocks. Yeah. Because I'd never heard that. I've never once heard anyone say that in the way that I've heard and understood. No recording, no performance. Has anyone ever said that?
No, yeah,
I can't hear it.
That's the one I always
I think actually Richard Naxton was closest for me.
It's a
to be fair, actually, I didn't really hear you do it because I was always off stage when you were doing it. So I don't really feel like I've ever really properly heard you doing it. But Richard Naxton, I got really close for me, I think.
No, you did a very good job. Yeah, I've never looked forward to singing that particular phrase. But I've enjoyed this number over the years. It is the song out of all the songs I do that has changed the most. And what I appreciate about it is I feel like it has the blankest of slates. I've done very mimey versions and I've done very still versions. And I've done everything in between, and I keep finding new ways to do it. I even tried a version.
They're so valid. Like they're all so valid.
No, not the one I'm about to say. I tried originally once in 2011 to do a version where my eyes were closed the whole time because I was asleep.
Oh yeah, no.
And it just like you couldn't read what I was doing. But I was like, well, I'm asleep. Wouldn't that be very like? I didn't like that. I was completely cut off.
Because you shut the audience off when you close your eyes.
Yeah, but fortunately, I got out of it because someone in the cast was like, "Oh, you're doing such a good job with that number, but it's a shame you have your eyes closed the whole time." I mean, do you know that? Like they thought I was making like I just was nervous or something.
You hadn't noticed.
I hadn't noticed, so I got away with it. But goodness, it has the restatement of the fugue theme, and goes into this incredible recit. And how many of us haven't had a moment when some love situation, some emotional thing has prevented you from sleeping, and you're struggling with it?
Pretty much can't sleep most nights, so this resonates with me. But for me, my favorite bit musically is when those strings kick in for or something like that. You know, when for you dream you are crossing.
Yes,
I love they and then they go. I am obsessed with those strings.
Yeah,
and all the permutations and levels they go through. And it actually feels like you're on waves, and it's so unsure and so weird and crunchy and manic and just like deranged. That is it like that truly like musically speaks to me emotionally in a way that like not many of these songs do.
No, Sullivan did an amazing job of not just going blum 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 the whole way through.
Yeah.
And
you could so easily have done that.
The third verse has rolling arpeggios in the lower register, and then those in duplet time, which those fit beautifully with relative to the accompaniment.
People always do the bike, don't they?
Yeah, there's a lot to be said. There's a number of wonderful other details too, like there's a tempo change when the key change happens, and it's not usually observed, but and Clover, but the darkness has passed. It's supposed to be just slightly slower at the key change.
Oh, it should be, yeah, because I often find that when people just try and plow forward, it always runs away without the singer. And it always feels uncomfortable for the singer to kind of try and catch up to them. So yeah.
And as far as all that goes, it's really wonderful. Then at the end, we get this almost stately 2/4, and thank goodness they're both of them. Oh, and then incredible play out. This is one of those numbers that's such a gift. Again, he's got two big gifts. This guy, and you could do it. You could do a good job, and you get a massive round of applause. Like it's one of those numbers where the applause is for the composers just as much as they are for you. And I can't think
composer, character, actor, lyricist.
100%.
Everyone's getting an applause.
this is, to me, the ultimate patter song.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
it's really hard to feel like it could be anything but. And I'm glad we were both in agreement on these top two, which hopefully makes you feel like Wells is even a better part than you had figured even at the last time.
Yeah, because I remember ranking him so low in my roles and then realizing that just to restate what I said in the Patterol's video, that if you give him the
Your
same
attention.
dramatic trajectory as Jack Point, which you could do, because he dies at the end. Like, you know, you can give him that same emotional trajectory. I mean, yeah, he isn't in any unrequited love, but he's also like accidentally done a deal with the devil. So, you know, arguably his situation is kind of more grave than Jack Point's. But yeah, it's never given the same amount of weight.
I think we're at our conclusion, but I want to, you know, I've got many alternate endings for Sorcerer. So do you. I thought of one just now.
Yeah.
I was thinking about falling insensible, but then also falling infinitely. And do you know Portal? You know the game Portal?
Yes.
Imagine that at the end when the sorcerer drops down through the portal on the floor, there's also a portal on the ceiling, and
he just goes forever
for the rest of the act. I have to tell one more. I have this memory of this Mikado at the festival, and I wish I could. It's not on the GS Opera TV, but it was one where, like, in the final scene, when the patter guy says to the baritone, "Will you refrain from putting in your oar?" The middle mezzo just starts choking the baritone and doing this to him. Meanwhile, you have, Your Majesty, it's like this. That whole dialogue is still happening stage right. But stage left, this is happening, and it never stops until the number begins. Because then she has to sing the first line of the finale. And I just kept thinking how much better it would be if she just kept doing that and then just didn't sing her line and you had dead silence. I love
Perfect.
it.
In fact, I wrote a blog post when I had a blog like a million years ago. I wrote a blog post of my alternate ending to IOLANTHE, which is just they all go, "Such a susceptible charm, Sarla," and then they all pose, and then suddenly this like bleeding guy bursts out of the sentry box and is like, "Ah!" and then he just collapses, and everyone's like, "What's going on?" And the curtain just slowly falls, and then his twitching body is like half in, half out of the curtain.
Who was
this guy? And then the
guy?
conductor like looks around to the audience like, "Ah!"
You play it for real?
Yeah, just like that's just it's just funny because of the sentry box on stage, and it was funny if someone just burst out of it.
I like that very
oh God,
much.
I need help. I need medical attention.
Oh my gosh. Well, hopefully that doesn't happen to me.
And on that note, I suppose next week is going to be mezzo rolls, I think, if the schedule keeps to what I believe it's going to be. But thank you for watching this video. Remember to like the video. Remember to subscribe to my channel. You're really, really helping me by clicking subscribe. It really does help the reach of this video. It helps the YouTube algorithm. So if you like GNS, you know, just hit the like and subscribe, and then maybe more people will see these videos. And then we can all enjoy the fact that I have more subscribers. If that made any sense. It's very late here. It's not late where you are, is it, Will?
No, it's 5:52.
It's 5:52. It's 10:52 p.m. here.
Time for bed.
And yeah, it's time for my bed, and it's time for us to say goodbye from this video. But what a list that was, and what an audience you were.
They did such a nice job.